Hi, mates. Oh, there. I'm trying to do my Australian accent. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Richard. Today is my fourth progress presentation, and today's presentation focuses on two things. First is about the updates about the manuscripts we have submitted, and the second part is how we design the quantitative analysis of our data. So we were able to submit two papers for publication. Paper 1 is entitled as the specific anxiety situations and the intelligibility of Englishes as a lingua franca, and it was submitted to a Kyoto journal. Paper 2 is entitled as exploring anxiety and using Englishes as a lingua franca and its relationship to intelligibility and comprehensibility. This was submitted to a Q1 journal. Paper 1 results were derived qualitatively, while Paper 2's results were analyzed quantitatively. I would say, however, that although it's quantitative analysis, there are instances where the subjectivity of the researchers cloud the objectivity of the analysis if the framework being used is weak. I'm going to share more information about this in the second part of my report. Probably to inspire our freshmen, this is the time frame for our paper 1. So we started writing the paper in August last year, and then we submitted the paper last December 2015. Prior to submission, we spent a lot of time considering the layout requirements with regards to number of words, references, among others. Aside from the acknowledgement email received when the paper was submitted, it was quiet for more than 3 months, until last month when I emailed the chief editor about the status of our paper. His response was to ask the associate editor to give me updates of the paper, but until right now we haven't got anything yet, and so the waiting period continues. And for paper 2, I would say that it was more laborious than paper 1 in terms of formatting. The journal's publication format changes from time to time, and the basis of my references were from the previous publications that they had. Roughly it took us 3 weeks to finalize the references and other required formats. We were so careful in every step to follow the guidelines, as it could be the result of the paper not being processed by the editorial staff. It has been 3 months, and we haven't got anything, any message, aside from the confirmation email of the manuscript submitted. So that's the first part of my progress report. The second part of my report, I'm going to share to you the experiences we had during the quantitative analysis of the data. The title for me implies that we can't go away with subjectivity, even in the quantitative analysis of data. But quantitative analysis is purely objective, and that's what I thought in the beginning. The whole process of the analysis, however, suggests otherwise. This slide shows the framework of quantitative analysis we have done so far. To give you some insights of our study, we are looking at the relationship of anxiety and the intelligibility of Englishes. Anxiety, however, herein is distinct, as we would like to explore the existence of anxiety when English is used as a lingua franca among the interlocutors, specifically those found in pursuant's outer and expanding circles. So before we look at the relationship between the two big variables, anxiety and intelligibility, we need to explore the existence of anxiety first. To do that, we came up with a 21-item survey called as the Anxiety Scale of the Spoken Englishes as a lingua franca, ASELF, as you can see there. And this scale was tested and its reliability was ensured beforehand. In theoretical testing, two analyses are widely used, the confirmatory factor analysis and the exploratory factor analysis. Since we don't want to test a theory, but rather to propose a construct, we chose to use the exploratory factor analysis. By using AFA, we wanted to find out how the items are loaded into a particular construct or simply factors. And we aim for 3 factors based on the pre-qualitative analysis we have done with regards to the items in the survey itself. In the analysis of data, particularly the exploratory factor analysis, we have created a decision matrix to become more objective as possible. However, the element of subjective decisions persists. For example, in the selection of rotational method, we have used the principal axis factoring apart from other rotational methods, as it is easier to interpret the results of the analysis. Also, we cannot remain as very objective in the number of extracted factors based, for example, on the Squid test, but also depending on our pre-qualitative analysis. So, as I said, subjective decisions, which is controlled, has to be made as well. So when you look at the decision metrics, these are all based on the previous studies done within social sciences research. And we have objectively decided on the following. First is the number of items in the scale versus the number of respondents. The correlation coefficients must be at least 0.30. All loadings must be at least 0.40. We also use Kaiser-Meyer-Olkin, which has to have at least 0.60 to be acceptable. The Bartlett's tests must be less than 0.05 to be significant. All Kaiser's eigenvalues must be greater than 1. Cumulative variance should be at least 60%. The Squid test, showing the number of factors, and of course Cronbach alpha must be at least 0.70. So in doing the exploratory factor analysis, this is the first attempt that I'm showing to you on this slide. When you look at this slide, we have the left part where it shows the requirements for a good scale, the middle about the findings, and the comments that we've got. The left side actually depended on the decision metrics that I have talked earlier. So when it comes to the number of respondents, we say that it's good because we got 210 at least, and that is also acceptable. But with regards to the correlation coefficients, there are some variables that have less than 0.30, so we have reservations with that. With regards to the loadings of the 21 items, there are 2 items which are not actually loaded. Okay, so we have reservations with that. When an item is not loaded, this is unreliable, so it has to be deleted in the analysis. And then the Kaiser-Meyer-Olkin, this is 0.94, this is acceptable. The Bartlett's test, it has to be less than 0.05. We've got 0.000, this is significant, and this is acceptable. With regards to deciding on the number of factors, it's based on 3. First is the Kaiser eigenvalue, which has to be greater than 1. The criteria 1 is showing at least 3 factors, which is acceptable. This is what we'd like in our we'd like or we predicted in our pre-qualitative analysis. For criteria number 2, the cumulative variance, which should be at least 60%, it's showing 57.92%. So we have reservation with this because it's lower than 60%. And with regards to the use of the Squid test, it's showing actually 5 factors. So when you look at criteria 1, 2, and 3, it shows 3 different things. So when you look at the comments that we've got 1, 2, 3 for areas where we have reservations, and this is the point we have to decide on what to do. So we have to reanalyze the data for sure. This is the example of the correlation matrix that we've done so far in the first attempt. It's too small for you to see, but the table shows that most items have correlation coefficients greater than 0.30, but some have lower than 0.30. So it means that some items share too much variance, and it is impossible to know if the variables are correlated with each other. Those variables which are less than 0.30 are candidate for deletion when the exploratory factor analysis is repeated. This is the example of the Kaiser-Meyer-Olkin result. It's 0.943, which is highly acceptable. This is way above the limit of 60. When you look at the Bartlett's test of sphericity, it's also at 0.000, which is significant against the required significance of less than uh, 0.05. So in this slide, you can look at the number of factors based on the initial eigenvalues or based on the cumulative percent. As I told you a while back, we'd like to have three factors based on our pre-qualitative analysis of the items that we've got in the scale. So when you look at the number of initial of the eigenvalues greater than 1, there are actually three factors over there, as you can see, number 1, 2, and 3. But when you look at the cumulative percent, it's only 57.932%, which is below the 60% target we've set in the decision matrix. If the decision of the factors is based on the scree plot, you can actually count 5 factors, beginning from the slight drop in factor number 6. Aside from the factor problem that we've got with regards to the three criteria that we've set, when we look at the pattern matrix, there are 2 items that were unloaded over there. So these items or these unloaded items must be deleted in the analysis, as they are considered poor or unreliable items. Since we are not satisfied with the results of our first attempt based on the decision matrix, we need to do reanalysis of the data by deleting the 2 unreliable items. So in our second attempt, we still wanted to indicate 3 factors which are based on the pre-qualitative analysis of the items we've got, but we need to delete the 2 items that are unreliable in our first attempt. So the slide shows the results of our second attempt. When you look at the of course, the number of respondents, it's good. The correlation coefficients, there are still some variables which are less than 0.30, and then there is 1 items which is loaded with less than 0.40, but then the Kaiser is acceptable, the Bartlett's test is acceptable, the Kaiser eigenvalue is also acceptable with 3 factors, but then there is a slight difference with regards to the cumulative variance. It's actually 59.61 at present, which is pretty much close to 60%, but we still have reservations with that. But the use of the scree test, it's showing 3 factors, and we still have reservations with that as well. So what we have to do is to delete the unreliable item and then redo the analysis again. So in the third attempt of the analysis, we only have actually 18 items left for the analysis, because we deleted 2 items in the first attempt and the third item in the second attempt. In our third attempt, we need to unload another 1 item because it has less than 0.40 coefficient. This means it is unreliable in the analysis. With regards to the Kaiser's eigenvalue greater than 1, there are 2 factors which are acceptable, but there is one problem. The factor number 3, it's 0.95, but because it's close to 1, and the expected factors that we've got is 3, then this 0.95 could be acceptable. And then when you look at the use of the squid test as a criteria, there are also three factors over there. And by deleting the other items, the cumulative variance is way above 60%, which is 61.85%. Since there is one factor which is unreliable in our third attempt, we need to reanalyze again the data. So remember, this is our fourth attempt already, and we have deleted so far 4 items over there. So in our fourth attempt, there is a problem with regards to one item again, because this item has been loaded into 2 factors. It means that when it's loaded within 2 factors, uh, the item is unreliable as well. So we have reservations with that. But when you look at the number of factors, there is no problem with there, because criteria 1, like Kaiser eigenvalue greater than 1, we've got 3 factors already. And when you look at the cumulative variance, we've got 62%, which is above the 60% criteria that we've set. And then when you look at the squid test, we've got 3 factors in total. We cannot test the Cronbach alpha unless everything is ready based on our decision matrix. So in our fifth attempt, there are only 16 items to be analyzed, because we have deleted 5 items based on the previous attempts we've done. So when you look at the criteria we've set on the decision matrix, um, all are actually acceptable. All items are loaded. Um, Over here, it means that it's above 0.40. It means that all the items in the ASOLVE are reliable, and the number of factors that we'd like to have, which is 3, is also acceptable over here. And when it says that all are acceptable in this decision matrix, then we are ready to test the Cronbach alpha, but then it has to be at least 0.70 to become reliable. So in our sixth attempt, you can actually look at the comments that we've got over there. In most criteria that we've set in the decision matrix, all are acceptable, especially at the bottom for the reliability test under Cronbach alpha, which is actually 0.92. This is highly acceptable and reliable within social science research, as it is above the 0.70 threshold. So we could say that the 16 items are reliable and are creating a construct which we're gonna call as the SLF anxiety. So this is the result of the exploratory factor analysis. So we have a single construct which is called SLF anxiety, and there are 3 factors loaded. In the first factor above, there are 10 items, and then in the second factor, there are 5 items loaded. And for the last factor, there are 3 items loaded. For the first factor, we call it as interlocutor-induced difficulties, because this includes the acts of questioning, facial expressions, and willingness to communicate by the other interlocutors. The second factor is intelligibility processing difficulties, because it involves difficulties of the interlocutor himself or herself in decoding words, comprehending meanings, familiarity, and accentedness of speech. And the third factor, which is the apprehension of our interlocutors, include the proficiency of the interlocutors' native accented speech and the number of interlocutors. In naming the 3 factors, the element of subjective decision occurred, as the factor analysis does not generate the factor names by itself. So you could probably say that although exploratory factor analysis is quantitative analysis, it's also very subjective, because as you can see in the analysis that we've got, there are a lot of instances of subjectivity that occurred. But to ensure that we have good judgment and factor reduction in construction, we have created the decision matrix, which guided us all throughout the analysis of our data. Thank you so much for listening, and for your questions, please ask my good friend, Harris.